AEW is not here to change the world. We're gonna change the whole universe!
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And for 3 years now, everyone who comes here for wrestling content has asked me to make an AEW video. They want my opinion on matters. As if my opinion matters. And while AEW videos were always going to be in the cards somewhere on this channel, I wanted to wait until the company built up a history before I started commenting on said history. So now that they're 2 to 3 years into their run, now is about as good of a time as any. So I figure I'll start off by talking about the company in a generalized sense here, and what I think of the product overall. Now I realize that no matter what I say about this subject, I'm gonna upset somebody. A couple more sentences in, and somebody is gonna latch onto their keyboards and smash their fists right into it. Because either I say I like AEW, and I get told that I'm a smark who likes vanilla little people, and flippy shit, or I say I don't like AEW, and then I get told that I'm a WWE shill who is brainwashed. But the truth is, I kinda love AEW. AEW is my favorite current wrestling company. I know, what a know-nothing mark I am, but I'm here to explain why. The thing I like the most about AEW is that I truly feel like there's something in it for every kind of wrestling fan. If you're into aerial assaults and high-flying wrestling, don't worry, they got you covered. If you're into powerhouses and watching grown men get thrown around like rag dolls, don't worry, they got you covered. If you're more into the entertainment aspect of the business and you're a fan of characters, don't worry, they got you covered. If you're into watching two masters of the mic compete in a verbal smackdown against one another, if you wanted to watch a technical masterpiece, or if you're more of a hardcore fan, don't worry, they got you covered. Or hey, maybe you're somebody who doesn't take wrestling all that seriously. You watch it for shits and giggles, you like the goofiness of it all. Again, don't worry, they got you covered. Now I know there's some wrestling fans out there who hate this for some reason. They think that the fun stuff in wrestling is killing the business, completely forgetting that this is an entertainment business. Somehow wires got crossed, and they think comedy wrestling is making a joke of wrestling, instead of making a joke in wrestling. But first off, let me ask to all you wrestling fans, where have you been? This kind of stupid shit has almost always been present in wrestling. And secondly, I don't believe that there's only one way to have a good match, or one way to have a good gimmick. Only one way to be a wrestler. Wrestling isn't a genre. It's the host of many genres. You don't go to see a Jim Carrey movie and then shit talk it for not being Casablanca. That's just not how it works. And I completely understand people not liking certain things. That's entirely valid. Your tastes are your tastes. But the thing is that the world is made up of all different people with unique, specific likes and dislikes.
I learned there's something in Vince McMahon's favorite statement. Chocolate, vanilla. Which one is the best? Can I be mad at you for liking chocolate? I don't want to see that. I don't want that fucking chocolate near me. But if you like the fucking chocolate, eat the goddamn chocolate. As long as I can have my vanilla.
But to actually act like the laughter of the audience is going to somehow drive people away is absolutely insane. The line is that AEW is for everybody. And I think that that's really clear and works on multiple levels. The doors are open for talents of all different kinds of backgrounds to come in, but the product itself provides entertainment for every type of wrestling fan. I love the roster. Not that I don't like WWE's, I actually love their roster up until all the budget cuts. But AEW's roster is filled with some of the top former WWE stars, former WCW stars, former ECW stars, former ROH stars, former NJPW stars, former TNA stars, and I've heard some people try to use this as a negative, like this makes the company a WWE retirement home or that they only pick up their scraps. But I think what you fail to realize, that WWE has basically had a monopoly on pro wrestling for years. If these guys have wrestled for WWE, then it's because they were good enough to be seen on TV. I don't know, there's just a weird part of the IWC that expects every wrestler to be sitting at home waiting by the phone for Vince to call. And if they're not, then they're either unloyal or they're traitors of some kind for accepting a job somewhere else. They were on a TV wrestling show, now they're on another. It's really not that deep, I assure you. I hate to break it to you, but when you sign a contract with the WWE, it's not an eternal arrangement. While wrestling has a rabid fan base, you guys gotta be sensible and realize that these are these people's jobs. If Best Buy hires a dude from Target, it's not a cause for a mental breakdown. We're not gonna start boycotting the Best Buy. So what's the malfunction with them finding another televised wrestling show to work on? These arguments, they don't make sense, especially when you put them in the context of wrestling, where almost every worker has worked all over the place. Like, that's part of their craft. That's what they do. A lot of the time, they wrestle for multiple places at once. They're not stabbing each and every promoter in the back. They're independent contractors, allegedly. On top of all this, the roster's also chock full of homegrown talent, talented people who have never been utilized on a big platform before now, and a bunch of second-generation stars who are all proving their worth on a weekly basis. What I like is that there's a lot of diversity on their roster. And no, I'm not just talking about the fact that they have people of all different races, all different religions, all different backgrounds, all different genders, all different sexual orientations, which they do, by the way, but that's not what I'm necessarily talking about. I mean in terms of the types of workers they hire. Wrestlers of all different in-ring styles and personalities. And you know what? They cultivate an atmosphere where none of these gimmicks feel out of place. Each is just as valid as the last. And you have to at least be a little bit impressed by some of the signings they got. I thought for sure I'd never see people like Sting, CM Punk, and Christian Cage ever wrestle again, let alone show up on TV on a weekly basis. Just one of those names is impressive, but all of them? That's unreal. It's like playing universe mode in the WWE games. Like, anything is possible. You have no idea what's going on. Kevin Nash might run in and deliver a jackknife to somebody next week. I have no idea. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's not completely out of the cards either. Eddie Kingston being a constant fixture on TV has been a long time coming. The dude doesn't even need to go in the ring. Just give that man a mic and you've got something special. He can go in the ring, I'm just saying he doesn't have to. I'm so glad this company not only gave the guy a chance, but provided a workplace where the guy can just go off and not be hassled by a creative department trying to appease a guy who is several decades removed from reality. I said what I said. You got guys like Mark Henry, Paul Wight, and Billy Gunn on the roster in some minor roles, and it's nice to see them every now and again. They do nothing to take away or distract from your regularly scheduled program, it's just like a little plus. It's an addition. Billy also works as a part-time wrestler, part-time manager for his sons, and I think he's great in the role. Chris Jericho really helped legitimize the company early on, being its first big star and its first world champion. I've said it before, but I'll say it again, he is the Madonna of professional wrestling. The David Bowie of sports entertainment, if you must. And he continues to reinvent himself and provide love them or hate them moments every time that he's on camera. I think Jericho has been nothing short of amazing in AEW. Bryan Danielson is out there with his Jake Long gimmick, really taking everyone to task, and putting on incredible matches with everyone he steps in the ring with. The Undisputed Era, or whatever they're going to be renamed, they're always highly entertaining. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with them, but I am invested. I want to find out. And Brody Lee, God rest his soul, was one of my favorite men on the roster. It was interesting watching this guy branch out with this character. I do intend on talking about him more in a separate video, so I'll save most of my praise for then. In addition to bringing already established names, they're also creating or highlighting many others. Brian Pillman Jr. has brought his father's energy, and also face, to an AEW wrestling ring since his debut. Brock Anderson, well, same exact thing really. The Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny has had this really bizarre gimmick that all this time later I'm not entirely sure I fully understand it, but I know that I like it. And you can't go wrong with talking about the Dark Order. I love their ever-evolving gimmick, and I've been a fan of Evil Uno since he was a Super Smash Bro. The guy's just fun. Don't even get me started with MJF. A gent whose star shines so bright, even the WWE is attempting to get their hands on it, so they can dim that light right out. Just make him like everyone else. That is what happens. The guy's everything you'd want in a heel, and everything you'd hate in an actual person. I couldn't have made this video without making some mention of just how truly awesome this guy is. Oh no, I'm sorry, I misread that. How truly awful this guy is. Matt Hardy is still out there looking like he's in his prime, putting over new stars either by facing them in the ring, or joining at their side. I remember seeing Chris Statlander wrestle a show and thinking, wow, she has one of the most unique gimmicks I think I've ever seen. That'll probably never make it to TV.
It's not the first time I've been proven wrong.
I watched Sonny Kiss perform locally on a number of occasions, and I have never once witnessed him have a bad match. So to see him now on my TV is kind of surreal. It's like I had a front row seat to his come up. Britt Baker is one of my favorite people on the roster. She's always entertaining, and any segment, whether it be a match or a promo from her, is must-see TV. These are just some of the names that you'll find on AEW programming. Honestly, I'm kinda selling them short. What I really appreciate about this company more than their talent is their use of their talent. AEW never feels like you're watching a bunch of past their prime wrestlers trying to have one last run for one last paycheck. And it could very easily go down that path. You know, this could have been WCW 2000, or even worse, TNA 2010. But it doesn't go that route. It doesn't sacrifice their new upcoming names for the sake of nostalgia. It has the wrestlers from the last several generations coexist with the roster of those newer to the scene. The company in of itself is almost a complete passing of the torch. But I also want to highlight it because it doesn't go the opposite route of that either, and have this year's name stomp out last year's legacy. There's a good balance here, and it's a balance that I don't think I've ever seen properly demonstrated in a company before. Maybe early ROH, but I didn't watch it. I didn't have access, I'm sorry. Their use of legends especially, I think, is very worthwhile. I hate to keep bringing up WWE, but like, what else am I going to compare it to? In WWE, when a legend is used, it's on a rare occasion in a throwaway segment that usually makes the older star look goofy or otherwise useless. Or again, they go the opposite route. They make the new guy look goofy and useless. But AEW puts them on full display. They are front and center the whole time, and they do nothing to take away from the product. They instead add to it. They've brought Jake the Snake Roberts back onto TV screens and into nightmares. And look, I don't care what they call Jeff Hardy, Jake the Snake is the real charismatic enigma. And Tully Blanchard. Holy fuck, Tully Blanchard has maybe cut some of the best promos of his career in AEW. And he's made himself a household name after what? 4 decades of irrelevancy? That's wild. Seriously, Tully. You're my boy, Tully. You're my boy. These legends are helping transition the stars of tomorrow into becoming the stars of today. But the way that the company uses and utilizes them also puts significant spotlight on both the past and the future, making for a very interesting picture of the present. I like that the company has separated and broken up their roster into several factions and stables. It kinda makes things feel legitimate. Wrestling has always been cliquey, sometimes in front of the camera, but especially all the times behind them. I think in any work environment, really, you make friends and you kind of go off into groups. I like that they're able to have so many factions but not feel weighed down by them all. They're not putting the roster entirely in 2 factions and then starting a rivalry with the 2, because who would be stupid enough to do that? In AEW, sometimes all a faction dictates is who these wrestlers are seen backstage with. And you know what? I dig it. It makes everything happening in the company feel like it's connected, even if by a little bit. This also helps when it comes to branching out stories. You already have multiple parties you can incorporate into angles, and it'll feel entirely organic, because the relationship, the friendships were already there. Those seeds have already been sown. Even if they were done in the background, they're still there. You know, you don't have to do a setup where these 2 people who have never interacted before now have to become best friends and face these other people who have been giving them problems. You know, because like in real life, sometimes if you got beef with someone, you got beef with their boy and their dinosaur. I mean, these are just the facts of life. Their use of celebrities I also find to be a breath of fresh air. Their inclusion into the product never feels excessive or unbearable. The famous guests who have appeared have always seemed to really enjoy themselves. And because of that, I've enjoyed watching them more. I think AEW finds interesting uses of outside names. And they don't cater entire episodes of their product specifically to the one celebrity who's going to show up for a segment. You know, AEW doesn't roll out the red carpet for people. They bring these outside celebrities in and tell them to roll up their sleeves. I like it. It's much more fun, and it seems a lot more natural. One thing I really want to point out, because I don't know that too many people have spoke about this, but it's something I really appreciate about this company. AEW adapts and evolves. In wrestling, there's always going to be mistakes. There's always going to be slip-ups. There's always going to be incidents. These things unfortunately do happen. If they didn't, Matthew would be out of a job. But what I love about AEW is that they don't run away from their mistakes. They don't just proceed on and act like nothing happened. They fuck up, and then they make that fuck up part of the show. As opposed to insulting the intelligence of wrestling audiences, AEW creates a backstory. They take their mistakes and they make those mistakes plot points. Why did Matt Sydal slip up on the turnbuckle? Because it was layered in baby oil. Why didn't the ring explode when it was supposed to? Because Kenny Omega and Don Callis suck at making explosives. Why did Eddie Kingston pass out like the ring did explode? Because he was expecting it, he braced himself, and he had a panic attack. I'm a fan of all of this. I'd rather you address the elephant in the room and explain it away than just stare it dead in the eyes and go, what elephant? I don't think that they get enough credit for this. So, here you go, Cody. Here's your roses. Even though you got very mad at me that one time on Twitter. I didn't forget it, but I'm hoping you did. I also like the way the company respectfully honors those who have passed. Even if those who have passed have never stepped foot in an AEW ring. This company seems to really respect wrestling lineage and what came before. You know, they acknowledge the past, but they're looking to make a better future. But I think for the most part, they really captivate a family-type feel. And if that's not the case backstage, then they are really good. They're keeping a kayfabe. The way they handled Brody's death, and the way they have since celebrated his life and career, seems like a loving tribute from not a business, but from a bunch of friends and family. I think this is one of the most respectful ways I've ever seen a company deal with the loss of a talent. And even after his death, his presence is still present. And the inclusion of his name and family never feels exploitative. It feels genuine and welcome and heartfelt. But most of all, what I love about AEW is that the company is always willing to take a risk. They're always trying something new. And hey, it might not always work out, but I respect the hell out of them for continuing to push the envelope instead of just falling into a generic format. They find a new way to tell a story, or they find a new story to tell. What's going on in AEW is always so different than what's going on anywhere else. I like that AEW takes chances. I like that AEW from time to time gets weird. I like that AEW is different.
I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
Look, it's not perfect. Sometimes segments fall flat. Sometimes gimmicks need to very quickly be repurposed. Sometimes I wish the roster would stop hitting the same 5 flippy moves. And sometimes I wish that they would stop adding more to the roster and just further develop who they have. Now, that's not to say that the many new additions to the company have been bad or anything. I just don't like the idea of hoarding talent if you don't have any creative plans for them. Now, I'm not saying that's the case here, but they have such a big roster with a lot of big names, and soon-to-be big names, that I'm sure that it's a little bit overwhelming in terms of trying to find something for everyone to do. However, I think the good far outweighs the bad. I have friends who stopped watching wrestling for over a decade or so, suddenly find that passion for wrestling again when watching AEW. That doesn't just always happen. People are excited. People who have tuned out of wrestling, who have lost their love for it, have found it again through this company. I think that's really special. Anyway, with all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bad time. Same bad channel.
I'll pull out the